caught my boss cheating with his wife's best friend. Our company was celebrating securing another 5-year contract. With a massive client, we do these office parties quite often with every big-ish achievement. It's our boss's way of appreciating our work. Bonuses are awarded to boost morale as the workload can get intense. Anyway, the party was well underway in our boss's house. Everyone was drunk, indulging in good food and generally having a good time. Needing the bathroom. I excused myself and headed for the basement bathroom. Everyone always forgets it's there, so I knew it would be empty. I blame it on the alcohol or perhaps the loud music just above, but I didn't hear anything to give me warning of the horror of what I would witness until I stumbled into the unlocked bathroom and saw my boss's wife's best friend, also an employee of his, riding my boss as he sat on top of the toilet. I rushed out immediately after. I didn't even hesitate. I headed straight for the front door, walked for what felt like forever, then called myself an Uber home. This all happened last night, and I've just woken up with a killer hangover, bracing for the impact for the awkward encounter I'll have with my boss on Monday, lol. Here are some funny comments. Congrats on the promotion. Guess who's about to get a raise? The boss sure had a raise. Congrats on the raise and promotion, and tell the wife after that. Part 2. As many of you have suggested, I wrote a more detailed version of events within my email. I also scheduled a meeting with HR to get ahead of the issue. I had the meeting scheduled on Monday about an hour before people usually start coming in. We decided to keep the recording of the meeting informal and keep all the notes in my file simply because it wouldn't lead to an official investigation. The mistress and my boss are into different departments. My boss isn't technically her direct boss, which means the dating rules between them are in a gray area. I don't really care about that anyway, as I was worried about my job security. After HR, the day began as usual. We attended a morning meeting. During said meeting, I noticed how often my boss would avoid eye contact with me, and every time I did look his way, which was often, as he speaks the most, he always made it a point to look away from my side of the conference room. Fast forward to around lunchtime. A group of us had ordered in and would work through our lunch together. We do this work through lunch thing a couple of times a week. It's a time for us to bounce ideas off one another, check our progress on various projects, help out where it's needed, etc. It's usually reserved for employees with no senior members. Although that's not a rule, it's just what we've always done. So it was strange for our boss to be there. Still, I carried on like nothing was wrong. Towards the end of the lunch, we had gotten to the topic of the party. Someone had asked me of my whereabouts at the end of the night, and at this point I knew the safest option would be to pretend to be too drunk. I even gave my boss a few compliments on the food they had prepared. Everyone around me bought the story with no issues, and I could only hope that my boss did too. Now on for Tuesday, when things returned back to normal between my boss and I in the morning. I assumed he had believed my story from yesterday. Only now I see he was merely playing a part. His mistress cornered me into the ladies' toilets. Before this incident, this woman used to be sweet, caring, and a bit of people pleaser. Think of Charles Boyle from B99. Without the office draw bread fermentation. Now she was a vicious version of herself who was completely unrecognizable. She told me she didn't buy my story, which told me she and my boss had already discussed me. She told me I shouldn't even think of telling the wife because she wouldn't believe some employee over her husband and best friend. True, she threw in a few insults in between it all, then finished it by threatening the ending of my career by mentioning how she has my boss wrapped around her finger. She told me time and time again to keep quiet, otherwise things would get messy. Now this is the part that fills me with immense joy. To the Reddit user who sent me links to Amazon for spy recording gadgets. You, my friend, deserve the world. I had bought a pen ready just in case my boss didn't believe my story on Monday. Like many of you suggested, I should be recording all conversations when he didn't pull me aside for a conversation. The small pen was forgotten on the inside top pocket of my shirt. The pen has no voice command and basically just records until you hit stop. And since I hit start the second I walked into the office, it recorded my entire day. So now I'm sitting here on a gold mine. as the mistress just confessed to her crimes then threatened me if I didn't comply. I'm currently brushing up my CV, as my amazing boyfriend sifts through the recording to piece everything together. There probably won't be another update for a while. Not until my plan comes together. So until then, Reddit. Part 3. 2 weeks after first post. Update 2. Alright Reddit, I know it's been a while, but the update is worth giving and I'm hoping after this one there'll be only one left. Since the mistress cornered me, I had every intention of not only exposing the affair to the wife, but the entire office too. I know it's petty and crappy, but she was a bitch. I just needed a little time. So I needed time for one of 2 reasons. 1. My company dishes out a massive bonus after 10 years of service. I have been with them since I graduated university and I knew the 10-year mark was coming in just a few weeks' time. I would have been a fool to pass up that money and now it's safely in my bank account. 2. I needed to line up another job, which I did at the company my boyfriend works in. He vouched for me, which helped in securing a place and fast-tracking the application process. Now with the first part of my plan executed came the second part. A while ago, my boyfriend and I had booked holidays, starting from last week and ending in 2 weeks' time. By sheer luck, these holidays couldn't have come at a more perfect time. During the first week, besides seeing SZA and Beyonce perform, highlight of the month so far by the way, I received and accepted an offer at my new place of employment and handed in my resignation at my current place of employment, which means I will now be working my notice period at a 5-star all-inclusive resort in Mexico. Don't worry, I've reread my contract 100 times. They only require you to work a notice of 2 weeks, but sometimes ask if you can stay until they find cover. My old workplace offers and encourages ex-employees to complete an exit interview. I was more than happy to comply to this. After the basic questions of what's it like to work there, were you pleased with the salary and benefits, blah blah blah, you get the gist, came the question I was most excited for: what are your reasons of leaving company name here? Let me tell you, I answered that question with great detail. From the office party to where the first incident took place, to the threat I received when I was cornered in the ladies' toilets. I even went on to explain that I had evidence supporting my claims. I was clear in that the only reason I was leaving was the fear of my job security, that I would miss my team dearly, which I would, and that I hoped this wouldn't happen to another employee. Now part 3. After a simple Google search, I found my old boss's wife's work email address. It's a little alarming how easy it is to find people's info online these days. In great detail, I once again explained my version of events, including a little audio file just in case she didn't believe me. I explained to her that she was free to do as she pleases with the information, as I no longer worked at the company. I've even reached out offering my support along with an amazing family lawyer who happens to be my boyfriend's sister's law. That woman is a beast in the courtroom. Once I found out you could watch random court procedures, it became a hobby for my boyfriend and I to watch in the back of the courtroom, truly relishing in the drama. Sorry for the detour. I also mentioned to the wife my intentions to expose her husband to the office. I feel a little guilty having to embarrass her like this. If they were so careless about their affair, it leads me to believe others may know and have kept it quiet due to fear. I've been fortunate enough to find other employment much faster than I had originally predicted, but I know my experience isn't the same for many. And I wouldn't allow the mistress to install fear into anyone in my old team. They're all amazing people with families to support. After I sent that email, I sent out a message to my old work group chat, again explaining the true reason I left along with the voice recording. I encouraged others to go to HR if they have experienced a similar situation and to not live in fear. I could only hope they listen to this. This was all done at an hour ago, a time where everyone back home would be asleep by morning. I'm sure everyone, including the HR team, would have seen everything. I'm nervous, a little excited, but overall sad. Sad for the wife. She's losing 2 of the most important people in her life. Sad for myself, I truly loved my job along with the people too. They were all so welcoming when I started. Sad for the person I once thought my boss was. He was such an inspiring guy. Gave me more responsibility than I thought I could handle, but he had so much faith in me. He's done a really crappy thing to someone he claims he loves. I mean, of all people he could have chosen, why the best friend? Why is it always the best friend? Anyway, that's the update for now. I'm sure once the messages pour in, once everyone is awake, I'll have another update ready. I promise to have it out as quick as I can, as I want to sit and enjoy these cocktails without the constant messages to updates. Just kidding. Until next time, Reddit. Edit. This update was made last night, meaning the responses of the last update are in and should be coming soon. I'll try and to do it before I go to sleep, depending on how many cocktails I have today. Part 4. Update 3. This will likely be my last update. I'm going to try and include as much details as I can without drowning on, although it would simply be easier to do it with screenshots. Let's start with HR. I found out from my colleagues that they hadn't reviewed the exit video I made yet. To be honest, I didn't think it would be their top priority. It wasn't until the rumor mill of the whole situation reached them. After they did, I received an email today from the head of HR. As expected, she was shocked to find out the real reason I left, as I assured her a few times after our first meeting that things were fine. She relayed her concerns along with well wishes at first, but of course she had to do her job, and through ambiguous language it was clear she was trying to gauge what evidence I had and how badly it implicated the mistress along with the company too. I simply replied back that any discussions we needed to have would be when I'm back in the UK and with a lawyer present. She has yet to respond with a time and date. So let's start with the group chat. Keep in mind it doesn't include all the people I work with, obviously. Just the ones in my department and the ones I make plans with outside of work. As expected, the group chat has been lit up since the whole ordeal, and the jokes are still coming in as I type this. Most people were shocked, and few have said they've always suspected the two, but they chalked it up with reading too much Wattpad types of books. Needless to say, they are reeling in the drama. They also informed me that my boss, despite booking a holiday himself for the week, had been called into meetings with HR and a few higher-ups. I doubt I would hear more from this, not unless someone had insider knowledge. What surprised me was that I received an email in my personal inbox from one of my colleagues, someone who's not in my department and someone I don't have regular contact with. I won't go into too much detail, but basically y'all were right. I wasn't the only one who's caught them mid-action. Only they didn't see my colleague, and at the time he was with his now GF, another company employee, so they just kept their mouths shut. As for the wife, I honestly expected harsh retaliation. In fact, I had drafted a skeleton email to respond to it, if need be. She completely surprised me. She was extremely apologetic for the whole situation. She knew how much I looked up to my boss and expressed how deeply sorry she was on behalf of her husband and best friend. She revealed to me that she and her husband were in the midst of separating. Although she didn't reveal the reason behind the separation, I'm sure we can all assume. Apparently, he was to use his week off to move his stuff out from their house and into an apartment. And now with this new evidence, she's decided not to delay any further, and she will be divorcing him. She joked in appreciation for using my BF sister-in-law as a lawyer, but of course she already has one. We ended the emails with a late felt goodbyes and good lucks to our new futures. Keep in mind everything she tells me. I have to believe at face value. I don't really know this woman, and talking through emails or messages, you can never really gauge how genuine people are. But at this point, I choose to believe her, as she hasn't given me a reason not to. I'm sure you guys are a little disappointed about the anticlimactic responses, but honestly, I'm so over the drama. I'm glad things are seemingly slowing down. Now I can relax, drink myself stupid with my BF. And if you have any activity recommendations for Cancun, let me know. We're up to trying anything.
My GF wants to spend my inheritance in a house down payment, and I don't. My great-grandfather passed away 2 years ago. He left me $50,000 in his will. I was surprised because we didn't know each other at all. That money was locked away until last week. With all the legal stuff, I can't disclose, but a lot of family drama, like a lot. Anyway, I have 15K credit card debt and 20K in student loans and 10,000 in mortgage. So my idea was to pay off my debts and put whatever is left in my savings. Well, my GF says she wants us to use that 50K to get a down payment on our own house. Right now, we live in my house. I bought it 10 years ago dirt cheap, 70K. It needed some remodeling, but I made it work, and now it's a cozy place. She keeps saying it's our money, but it's my inheritance. So it's my money. This will cut down on my monthly expenses by 70%. The only remaining expenses would be food, water, electricity, and miscellaneous. My car was paid last year.
Am I the a-hole for not agreeing to be friends with a guy that bullied me in high school? I 25F was severely bullied in high school. I was considered quite chubby. I think I was 130 pounds at the time, 160 cm. And I had a bit of a stutter. The stutter was cause of anxiety, and it would only happen when I was around people that would be mean or bully me. In my junior year, a boy in my grade joined in on the bullying. Let's call him Jake. He was so much worse than everyone else. He used to follow me on my walk home and pour things on me, push me into bushes or into oncoming traffic, etc. He once pushed me into a lake when we were on a school trip when he found out I couldn't swim. I could go on and on about the things he did to me, but we would be here all day. After one particular incident where he made fun of me for my appearance, I really couldn't take it anymore. It wasn't the worst thing he did, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I tried to commit unalive with sleeping pills, but my uncle found me and took me to the hospital. I was in a coma for 11 days. I didn't go back to school after that and was homeschooled for my senior year. I never spoke to anyone from my school except two girls, Kate and Sarah, who checked up on me at the hospital. We're still friends. I moved away from that town after high school. I'm back in town for the first time in 7-ish years now. My cousin is getting married, so I'm here for her wedding. I decided to come a week early to spend time with my parents. I went to a bar with Kate and Sarah a couple of days ago and I saw Jake. I didn't recognize him at first, but Sarah told me it was him. I felt kind of anxious but decided to pretend like he wasn't there. He approached us as we were leaving and said hi to me. I said hi and engaged in the small talk. Our Uber arrived, so we said bye to him and left. He sent me an email, not sure how he got it, but I've had this email since high school, so maybe he's had it since. I don't know, that was quite long. He apologized for everything he did and said he's mortified he was even that kind of person. He said it's been haunting him since he heard of my attempt and he's deeply sorry. I replied to him saying it's alright and I forgave him a long time ago because I didn't want to hold on to hate and resentment from high school. I ran into him again at a pharmacy and he asked if we could talk. We went outside and he asked if we could go for dinner as friends and catch up. I said sorry, but I would really rather not. He asked why I can't go for dinner if I've apparently forgiven him. I said forgiveness doesn't mean I have to engage or be friends with him, and I simply don't want to be friends. It'll be weird given our history and I'd rather not be reminded of my high school years. He looked bummed out but didn't insist, and left. He sent another email 3 hours ago saying he can't bring himself to forgive himself if he doesn't feel like I have, and that me refusing to even have dinner with him makes him feel like I haven't forgiven him and the guilt is eating him up. I replied saying, I'm sorry, but I'm not having dinner with you and you should take that up with a therapist. I've told you I have forgiven you. I just don't want to have dinner with you and I'm not going to force myself to do so to ease your conscience. I told my parents of this whole thing and they said I'm being too harsh on him and that I should do what I can to make him forgive himself because no one deserves to live with guilt. They said one dinner is nothing and I should just suck it up and go. I said no and kind of got angry at them. I really don't know whether I'm being irrational or not. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter use my wife's dress for her own wedding? I am 49, have 3 kids, Anna, F24. Michael, M19, and Caroline, F16. My wife, the kids' mom, passed away 16 years ago. She was the love of my life. We were high school sweethearts and got married while we were in college. She loved weddings and had planned hers since she was a little kid. So for our wedding she got a custom-made dress, very beautiful. I keep the dress in a hanger in my closet. To keep her close in some way, our kids love the dress too, because of the emotional value it has. We have some photos of our wedding day hanged in our house. Anna has always loved the dress and has said since she was young that she wanted a dress just like that one for her own wedding, which I thought was sweet. Her fiancé and her got engaged 2 months ago, and they're planning their wedding. Well, the issue is that Anna asked me to borrow my wife's dress and some other stuff like the veil and some jewelry for the wedding. I said she can wear the jewelry as long as she gives it back, but she can't use the dress or the veil. The thing is, my wife was on the chubby side, while Anna is very skinny, so she would have to modify the dress in order to fit her. I told her she can take some photos and get a custom-made dress that's like her mom's, but there's absolutely no way I'll let her borrow and ruin the dress. Now my family is against me. They think I should let her borrow the dress. Some of my wife's family agree too, since they said they'd like to see Anna wearing the dress. However, some of my wife's family, like my mill, agree with me that the dress will never be the same if Anna wears it. It'll be Anna's dress and not my wife's. Am I the a-hole for sleeping naked on top of the covers to teach my flatmates GFA lesson? New to Reddit, please bear with me. So I 21. Guy live with my childhood best friend 22, also a guy, and have done for 2 years now. Up until last week, things were perfect between us. However, he recently got a new girlfriend, 23. Lady, and she honestly seems absolutely great except for one thing. She seemingly has a complete aversion to knocking. She and I have quite a lot in common, and I actually like spending time with her. However, it bugs the hell out of me when she just barges into my room without knocking first. Now, she's never walked in on me doing anything untoward. I'm usually just chilling on my bed or studying at my desk. However, on at least 7 separate occasions now she's done it first thing in the morning to ask if I want coffee. I sleep naked every time prior to the last one. I've been under the covers and she hasn't seen anything. I always point out that she could have, and she just giggles and says but I didn't. When she stayed over last week, in order to make my point, I intentionally slept on top of the covers. Sure enough, she barges in at 7 a.m. begins to ask if I want coffee and sees my you-know-what. She immediately backed out of the room and didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. My mate later pulled me aside and said I was bang out of order, accused me of deliberately exposing myself, and pointed out that I'd threatened to do it before. I literally just said okay, but what if I had no covers and you saw everything before? They're now framing this to others that I'm some sick creep who intentionally got naked and lay in wait of her because that's how I get my rocks off. And I'm kinda seeing how it came off that way. Am I the a-hole for doing this?
I really enjoyed watching my neighbor fall in love. My bedroom window faces my neighbor's kitchen and front yard. I don't try to spy on him or deliberately watch him, but our windows face each other, so when I'm at my desk, I often will catch a momentary glimpse of his life. He got divorced or separated close to 5 years ago. The lawn started to get long. His kid was a bit more free range. You could see the kitchen table getting covered with letters and dishes. The back porch was falling apart. It was sad to see. I've never spoken to him, but we wave to each other sometimes, and he seems nice enough. But a few months ago, I noticed him staying up really late often. He had put a new computer on the kitchen table, and on my many bathroom breaks, I would see him up at the computer. Sometimes with the curtain pulled, but still with the computer glow on the edges. Soon after the lawn was cut, the table was cleared off. A few days later, an unknown car was parked on our street outside his house. It showed up a few more times until one day I glance out to see him holding hands walking with a mystery woman. She was beautiful, honestly, and they looked so happy. They were talking and laughing and walking back from getting coffee. The lawn's been neat. He's doing what looks like improvement projects again, and he's even shaving and standing up taller. It's really nice to see. Since then, I smile whenever the new car is parked outside my neighbor's house, and the lights have still been on super late, but now it's upstairs, and I don't get a view in that one. But I'm sure they are having a great time. Can't really tell anyone I'm sort of spying on my neighbor, so figured I'd let Reddit know.
My mom is blaming me for my sister's attempted unalive. For some background, my 17F sister 22F cheated on her fiancé 25M of 3 years. While on a cruise, my parents took us on a cruise to celebrate our graduations. Since I graduated high school and she graduated with her bachelor's degree, while on the cruise, I caught her cheating and she begged me to stay quiet about it. I eventually told 2 of my friends because I couldn't hold it in any longer. Long story short, her fiancé ended up finding out because of me. We had a family dinner with my parents, my sister, and her fiancé. The restaurant is kind of small, so there is a waiting area where you wait for the host to seat you, and right near the waiting area there is a hallway that leads to the men and women's bathroom, if that makes sense. While waiting for our food, I went to use the restroom and I ran into one of my friends in the bathroom. We talked for a while, and coming out of the bathroom, she asked me if it was awkward between my sister and I. We exited the bathroom into the small hallway. I said, yes. I feel like I have to be loyal to her because she's my sister. But I also feel like a terrible person for not telling him that she cheated. Turns out, my sister's fiancé overheard our conversation. When I came out of the hallway, I saw him talking on phone in the waiting area, but thought nothing of it at the time. Long story short, he broke up with my sister that same day. He accused her of cheating on him and mentioned what he overheard me say in a desperate attempt to salvage their relationship. My mom drove my sister and I to his apartment, at his place. My mom explained to him that I lied for attention and she asked me to apologize. I did apologize. But then he asked me if I lied about the cheating. I wanted to say yes to save my sister's relationship, but he honestly looked so hurt already. I just couldn't bring myself to lie to him. I stayed silent and shook my head a little. There was a huge argument and he called the cops on us. Up until this morning. My sister and my mom refused to even look at me. They had not spoken to me since the whole incident. My dad was the only one who didn't blame me for everything. I know that I should have kept quiet about it. And I feel guilty for ruining their relationship. I feel really bad because he actually made my sister happy. This morning around 1 a.m., my dad woke me up and he was crying. All I remember hearing was my mom sobbing from across the hallway. Everything from that point was just traumatic. When I entered my sister's old bedroom, she was just lying on the floor. My mom was crying while on the phone with 911. And she was yelling incoherent sentences. My sister attempted to commit unalive. I don't want to describe the scene, but I can't get it out of my head. All I feel is guilt. To make matters worse, while we were at the hospital, I accidentally pissed my mom off. I told my dad that I was thirsty and he was going to help me find some water. But my mom got really mad. She exploded on both of us, but mainly me. She basically blamed me for everything. She said if my sister doesn't make it, then her blood is on my hands. And she also said that she wished it was me instead of my sister. My dad cut her off and yelled at her for saying those things. But she just argued back, defending herself. I honestly just feel like a piece of shit. My parents and my sister wouldn't have to deal with this mess if I just kept quiet and lied. My grandma came to the hospital and picked me up. I insisted on staying, but my dad refused. Part 2. My mom is blaming me for my sister's attempted unalive. 10 days have passed. This is an update for my last post. First, I want to thank everyone for all the kind messages, advice, and concerns. It honestly means a lot that so many people took the time out of their days to help me. Thank you. A lot has happened in the past few days, but I obviously can't mention everything. I'm not really sure where to start, but I'll begin with my sister. My sister has woken up and she's stable. She was discharged from the hospital yesterday, but she is still dealing with self-inflicted wounds that are still healing. My relationship with my mom and sister has deteriorated a lot. It honestly hurts that we aren't on speaking terms, but our relationships have never been great to begin with. At the moment, my sister is refusing to speak to me. I went to visit her at the hospital last week, and it was a couple hours after she woke up. But when I got there, she refused to even look at me. I knew that she was hurting, so I gave her space. My sister's ex-fiance came to my grandma's house. The day after my sister attempted, my dad, him and I had a long conversation about everything. I was able to directly tell him what I caught her doing, how she reacted afterwards, and how she begged me to stay silent about it. After I was done explaining what I saw, he showed us a bunch of messages that my sister sent him shortly before she attempted to take her life. She basically wrote long messages claiming she was held down and SA'd, and said that she begged me not to say anything to him because she was afraid and embarrassed about what happened to her. She then told him that he should not believe me because I'm just a kid who was confused about what I saw. Her ex-fiance kept asking me if I was sure of what I saw, and I am. My dad didn't say much at this point, but it was obvious how disappointed he was to see the messages. To be clear, I always believe in supporting SA'd victims and being there for them, but I think it's disgusting what she was doing. I know exactly what I saw and I wish I had proof. But when I walked into our room, she was enjoying what was going on. Without being too specific, my sister was not held down. She was on top of him when I walked in and was basically riding his face. Not only did she quickly get off him when she realized I walked in, but she tried to explain herself. Later that night, she begged me to not say anything about what I saw because she was drunk and made a dumb mistake. Her ex was obviously devastated and my dad kept apologizing to him. My dad ended up confirming that I was telling the truth because shortly after her ex-fiance broke up with her, she eventually confessed to my parents that she willingly cheated. And so the story about her being SA'd was just fabricated. Yesterday, shortly after being discharged, My sister started posting on social media about how us aid victims aren't taken seriously. She's receiving a lot of concerned and kind feedback from her friends and our extended family. And to make matters worse, my mom went on a huge rant on Facebook bashing my sister's ex for breaking up with her after she was S.A.'d. My grandma ended up dropping me off at home yesterday because she needed to run some errands and didn't feel comfortable leaving me alone at her home due to my current mental state. I felt better knowing that my dad was home. I just planned on locking myself into my room until my grandma came back. Well, my dad was very upset when he found out about the social media post and confronted my mom. They got into a big argument. My dad told her that he was tired of her defending and lying to save my sister. He kept talking about how she's preventing her from being an adult and facing the natural consequences of her actions. But my mom wasn't having it. A lot of bad things were said, but at the end my dad told her that he was tired of her, which made her snap. She started ranting about how he was heartless and was incapable of forgiveness. My dad responded asking her what she called him swallowing his self-worth and pride when he forgave her for cheating. My mom started yelling that he was bringing up old stuff. That happened more than 20 years ago. He started crying, saying he sacrificed a lot for this family, but she continues to be ungrateful and stabbed him in the back. My mom lost it and started blaming him. She said he is always away. He's a pilot and she was lonely. They continued going back and forth, but then she just yelled that she should have left him when she had the chance. To cut this post short, my mom started taunting my dad with the fact that she continued to cheat on him. After he originally found out, my dad told her to pack her things and leave the house. My mom didn't really care at that point, and she made sure to tell him that she's filing for divorce as soon as she gets the chance. And she also told him that she will most likely be awarded full custody of my younger brother 15 because my dad is always gone and she will take him to Europe so they can live with her family. For context, my mom is from a Slavic country. They got into another argument about my brother and his custody. I didn't mention my brother in my other post because he wasn't at the cruise and won't be home until the beginning of July. He's been away on a missions or service trip in Latin America. He left for this trip shortly after we got out of school. I ended up leaving the house and driving back to my grandma's house. I waited in my car until she got back home. I just couldn't stay with my family any longer. I should also mention that my mom and my sister are aware of my last post. Apparently, my post has been featured on several viral TikTok videos, and some family friends who know the situation have sent the videos and posts to my mom. My mom is extremely mad at me. Over the weekend, she kept demanding me to take my post down, but I told her I wouldn't take it down until she read the comments. And when she did, she told me that my sister was being unfairly judged by strangers and said the comments were being dramatic. As of today, my sister is home with my dad. My mom left the house and she's staying at her friend's house, and I'm staying with my grandma.
Today, my next-door pregnant neighbor knocked on my door. Around 7 p.m. today, I heard some knocking on my door. I opened it and it was my next-door pregnant neighbor. She was, I think, in her 7th or 8th month. She was holding a small plate in her hand, in a very shy voice. She asked me if I can give her some of whatever I was cooking because she liked the smell. I think pregnant women sometimes have strong cravings and they cannot resist it. Anyway, she was shy and apologized a lot for her request since we don't know each other. I laughed and told her it is okay. I was cooking a traditional meal from my country and the recipe has olive oil, garlic, jalapenos, and some spices. I think the smell was nice. I gave her some of my dinner, then she left. I watched her walking home like a cute little penguin who's happy with her successful little hunting. I felt really happy too for some reason.
Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she's not a witch? I'm 20 and my sister is 22. She has become obsessed with witch stuff and I thought it was just an aesthetic thing. But she genuinely believes in some weird stuff. Has an altar at her apartment and tries selling blessings and hexes on Etsy. My birthday was recently and she got me a rock. I laughed at first before realizing she was serious. I was pissed because I bought her an iPhone portable charger and she earns more than me. So I snapped at her and said it's all bullshit. And she needs a reality check and to find better hobbies. She's been crying to our mom, but am I really the a-hole?
My wife of 2 years is cheating on me. Today I 27 found out my wife 25 is cheating on me. As with all cheaters, she messed up. She left her second phone home when she left for work. I'm numb because I heard her phone go off. And I assumed she had just left it and we were supposed to meet up for lunch later. But when I picked up her phone, I saw a number I didn't recognize and the text on there said it all. It read, "I can't wait to see you tonight." Yeah, I know that maybe that's just a friend and this could just be a work phone. But my gut tells me otherwise. I've been thinking about it and she has been acting weird. She's been working long hours. She's been on 2 girls' trips this month, and she's been randomly called into work on her days off. I don't know what to do. Her second phone has a lock on it, otherwise I'd open it and read the other texts. What do I do? Update. Thank you for all the comments. I just finished with lunch with her. I confronted her about the phone and the look of horror on her face broke what little hope I had left that she wasn't cheating on me. I gave her her phone and told her to open it and show me the text thread, and the messages date back to December. I asked her how long she's been cheating and she confessed. She broke down and started apologizing as I read the messages, which were like daggers straight to my heart. I asked her again how long, and apparently it's been happening our whole marriage. When I told her I don't think I could forgive her, she got mad and drove home, packed a suitcase, and left. I'm sitting here on our bed with a mixture of sorrow, pain, and a desire to just wake up from this nightmare. I don't know where I went wrong. Why couldn't I be a better husband to her? I feel so lost and hopeless. She was my everything. Thank you for the support. Update 2. Wow, okay, so I didn't think this post would get any likes or support. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate all the comments and advice. So today I had the locks changed to the house. I called a divorce attorney to help me, and I meet with him in a day, so hopefully he takes my case. I went through some of her messages and her friends' messages to me. Apparently she twisted the story to make it look like I cheated on her and she's the victim. Unfortunately for her, I took a picture of the text that said "I can't wait see you" and sent that to her family. I don't know if that will do anything, but yeah, I feel insanely guilty every text I read from her. She called me about 40 times and left voicemails, which I immediately deleted. With all the support and help from you guys, I feel like I can make it through this. Oh, also, I did set a doctor's appointment to get tested for STDs. Thank you for all the support, I really appreciate it. Yesterday my world fell apart and you guys are helping me pick up the pieces. My family believes me and support me, and my friends support me too. I still have a lot of pain in me, but I feel like I can breathe a little better, and, as some of you have mentioned, that it can only get better from here. I hope this is the case because this hurt is one I never want to feel again. I'll keep you updated as it comes. 9 days have passed after the first post. A week or 2 ago, I 27M posted about how my ex of 25 of 2 years was cheating on me our entire marriage. Ever since then my life has been in a downhill spiral and the hurts too much. My race has been run, and to quote Lord of the Rings, there are some things that time cannot mend, some hurts that go too deep, that have taken hold. Baggins once told me his part in this tale would end, that each of us must come and go in a telling. It's my time to go in a telling of life. I thank you again for all the wonderful comments. Thank you, and for last time, goodbye. Update. Thank you all of you. Thank you. I was on the couch with my nug in my hand. I was crying, and I don't know why, but I fell asleep. I woke up to my phone going off. I am in the ER right now waiting to go to the mental health ward. You guys helped me with your love. Thank you is all I can say. Update 2. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I'm in the mental health unit now and they allow me to have my phone for 20 minutes. So I wanted to give you an update. I've called my brother and he's going to my house to take and lock up my NUGs until I get through this. I'm going to be here for a week or 2 until the doctors feel like I'm not a danger to myself. Again, thank you for all your love and support. And know that you saved a life with all your loving comments. Final update. The happier one. 2 weeks after the failed attempt, thank you Reddit, I almost made the worst decision 2 weeks ago. I almost committed unalive over my ex-wife. I'm happy to report that I'm back from the hospital with more hope and peace that I've felt in a long time. I got out last week and since then I finalized my divorce. My friend has moved in with me to help get me through this rough patch. Also, it turns out that my ex was cheating on me with a married co-worker, and when she ran to him after she left, he chose his wife over her. I don't know them otherwise. I'd let his wife know about his infidelity. My ex is now living in a motel because her friends and family have all abandoned her after I sent them proof. Life is looking up, and without your kind words and support, I wouldn't be here. Thank you for saving my life. Now it's time for me to love it again.
Am I the a-hole for not going to my sister's wedding? My sister 35F is getting married this fall. When she got engaged, she asked me 30F to be a bridesmaid approximately a year ago. Recently, she gave out her bridesmaid proposal boxes, and I did not receive one. I was cut out of the wedding party. I never said anything because personally, I feel like it would come across selfish. And if she selected people to be a part of her day, then so be it. I was hurt though. A little backstory, my sister and I have history. She has done some very wicked things to me. As example, she had a baby when I was 15 years old and told me if I babysat for her every day after school, she would gift me her old car on my 16th birthday. Fast forward, after babysitting for 6 hours every day for a year, she sold that car and kept the money and told me to get over it. My sister has excluded me from all wedding activities, such as dress shopping, etc., but yet my sil, mom, grandma, etc. have all been invited. Now back to the wedding. I recently got the invitation and scanned the QR code to go to her wedding site, where I discovered that I was excluded from a +1 as well and cannot bring my boyfriend of 2 years. If I were to go to this wedding that I was already de-bridesmaided, I would also have to attend alone. I decided I honestly did not want to go and told my mother. She's calling me the whole telling me that I'm going to regret this, and it's ridiculous to not attend over some bad history and your boyfriend not being allowed to come. For reference, it wasn't about the +1. It was just my final straw. Am I the a-hole or am I justified in my decision?
2 weeks ago, I slept with my daughter's friend, genuinely feeling anxious every day. My daughter has a very pretty 21-year-old friend. Before all of this happened, I remember thinking to myself, if I was younger, I'd totally date her. She's my type, blonde, tall, cute face, kind, etc. She's always been very nice to me. But suddenly she actually started teasing me. She started calling me daddy over text. She said, "Your daughter, so lucky. I wish you were my daddy." She texted me at night to ask me a question. It was an excuse, of course. I replied to the question, but she kept the conversation going. She said, "I'm in bed right now but can't sleep." Honestly, I'd totally want a hug. To keep it short, I couldn't keep it in my pants. I'm really not an excited dude drooling over young girls. My daughter has 7 to 8 close friends I see regularly. She's the only one I find pretty, because she really is pretty, and I simply couldn't resist. I'm divorced. I started seeing someone else 2 months ago. But I wouldn't call that cheating since we aren't clearly a couple yet. I'm just anxious because I wouldn't want my daughter to find out. Yesterday she suddenly said we need to talk, and it scared the hell out of me. Basically every time I see her, I'm like, I hope she hasn't found out. I hope she hasn't found out. I hope she hasn't found out.
Am I the a-hole for secretly paying my daughter's tuition? My wife Diana is a lawyer, and so is her father, brother, and uncles. They take pride in this, and it is sometimes referred to as the family occupation. I am 48 and Diana is 47. Diana wants our children to go law school and become lawyers. Just like her, we have 3 children: Debbie 24, Mark 21, and Alice 18. Debbie is in law school and Mark has been accepted into one. Alice doesn't want to go law school nor become a lawyer. She wants to go to art school instead. My wife isn't happy about this, and they got into a fight. Diana told Alice that she should pay for her own education. I told Diana that this is ridiculous, and that Alice can't pay on her own. Diana wouldn't budge. Diana earns slightly more than I do, and we each pay into a joint account for any and all household expenses. What is left over we put on our individual accounts. We are generally free to do with this money as we please. But we have one rule: for very big expenditures we would ask the other before spending it. We also put money into 3 college funds for our children. And we are paying for Abby and Mark from these funds. After their fight, I told Alice that if she really wants to go, she should apply for art school and I would pay for it out of my individual account. She did and was accepted. After their fight, their relationship deteriorated and they weren't talking. Only yesterday did Diana find out that Alice is going to art school and that I am paying for it. She then got mad at me for breaking our promise of discussing big expenditures first. Then she called me an a-hole. I did break our promise but did it for our daughter. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for leaving my surprise wedding? Because I felt blindsided. Last week, I 30F was invited to a supposedly fancy party by my longtime boyfriend, Mark 32M. We had been dating for 5 years, and while we had discussed marriage before, there were no immediate plans for a wedding. Excited about the event, I dressed up in my best attire and arrived at the designated venue. As I entered the grand hall, I was completely taken aback to see all of our family, friends, and acquaintances gathered, eagerly waiting. It turns out, Mark had orchestrated an elaborate surprise wedding for us without my knowledge. Everyone erupted into applause as I stood there, shocked and overwhelmed. I just felt a mix of emotions. While I love Mark and had dreamed of our future together, the idea of getting married without any prior discussion or consent felt like a breach of trust. So, I pulled Mark aside and tried to express my concerns and reservations about the surprise wedding. I explained that I wanted a say in the planning process, to be part of the decision-making, and to have the chance to prepare mentally and emotionally for such a significant milestone in our lives. However, Mark dismissed my concerns, saying that he thought it would be a romantic gesture and that I would be thrilled in that moment. I faced a difficult choice: go along with the surprise wedding, putting on a smile despite feeling unsettled, or stand up for my autonomy and voice my true feelings. I ultimately made the decision not to proceed with the surprise wedding, much to the disappointment and confusion of our guests. Now I find myself at odds with Mark, our families, and even some of our friends who believe I overreacted and spoiled a beautiful moment. However, I firmly believe that a marriage should be a joint decision with open communication and shared expectations. Everyone's excuse for this is I have always talked about marrying Mark, and again, the problem isn't marrying him. The problem is not having any say in my wedding. Mark thought I'd appreciate it because I always spoke about how stressful planning a wedding must be. Yes, I think it's stressful. It is, but I'd still like planning one. After this whole ordeal, everyone asked if Mark and I were ending things, in which I replied no. I emphasized towards them and Mark that I still wanted to marry him. And most feel like this is making me more of an a-hole, since I just wasted a perfectly fine wedding. So am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my own surprise wedding, even though it was intended as a romantic gesture? Edit: I previously omitted this from my post because of the subreddit's word count guidelines. I love surprises. It's a thing everyone has known me to love. Mark knowing that. The fact I wanted to marry him and said wedding planning was stressful, thought a surprise wedding would be perfect. A surprise engagement is bland because it will always be a surprise, but not a wedding, lol. He threw this wedding for the surprise, but explained how in a couple days we could do a courthouse wedding to make it legal. This was his only way to surprise me. I love spontaneity, but legal marriage or not, I wanted a say in my wedding, to choose the perfect date, to choose my bridesmaids, to pick out my cake. Again, due to these thoughts, everyone thinks I'm a-hole because I could have went along with the party and do a redo legal wedding. But again, I felt blindsided and confused, so I left.
Am I the a-hole for letting someone drink my friend's beer and refusing to pay them back? I 28M had a friend 29M, Brian. over almost 3 months ago, where he brought a 12-pack of Coors and only drank half of it. When he left the remaining beers in my fridge despite me reminding him to grab them. Since then he came over twice for little things. And I told him to grab the beers he left, but he didn't. Come Saturday, I had a couple people over. And they asked if they could have the Coors, which I considered abandoned at this point, so say sure. They drank all of the remaining beers that night. Last night Brian came over for a minute and asked to grab his beers, and I told him they were gone. He got angry that I gave his beers away and demanded I pay for the remaining beers. I refused, because I felt he had plenty of time to take or drink them and that he abandoned them at my place. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for having my daughter take her sister's test? I have 2 daughters in high school. Sam is an A student and Emma is a B and C student. Sam has basically been making fun of Emma for her lower grades. We punish her when it happens, but she goes back to it every time. Now the difference between the 2 girls is that Sam takes the general classes where Emma takes the college classes. For example, Sam took biology as her science and Emma took college physics too, so very different. Summer is here and the final grades came in. Sam got all A's, and when she saw she did better, she started the I am smarter comments again. I had enough at this point. I grabbed one of Emma's old tests. It was a geometry test since Sam took geometry this year, and sat her down and had her do it. Long story short, she was in tears, and then I explained again how grades don't measure how smart you are, that she is in much easier classes compared to Emma. I think it finally got through to her. My wife was informed of what happened before she came home, and she was pissed about how I could do that to Sam. She took her to get ice cream to make up for it while me and Emma are still at home. Edit for those wondering, we have talked to her multiple times. We have tried to get the bottom of it. Her answer is she doesn't think it is a big deal. I took Emma to her favorite restaurant. Filled in my wife with what actually happened and not the story Sam told. We are going to have a big talk later. But she basically said on text she messed up. Not to mention, when Sam was calmer, she got a clearer story and realized she went off the handle. Without the facts.
Am I the a-hole for throwing out my son's go-kart after he hit his sister with it? My husband and I have 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, for Christmas. We got our younger 2, 8F. 10M these kids electric ride on scooters and our older son 14 a go-kart. We told my kids that they need to be careful of pedestrians and other riders, and that if they hit someone or something with their scooters, go-kart, it would be taken away, and if they broke anything, they'd have to work to pay back what they broke. 2 weeks ago we took the kids to the park to ride their scooters, go-kart, and my older son challenged the younger to do a race. My oldest daughter, 16, had to walk across the park to get water. And when she was halfway there, my oldest son hit her going full speed, around 15 miles per hour. My daughter broke a total of 8 bones in her leg, foot, and got a concussion, on top of the broken bones and head injury. Her phone and watch were both broken. Once we got home from the hospital, 4 days later, I listed my son's go-kart for sale and told him he has to get a job to pay for his sister's new phone and watch. He thinks I'm being unfair because I already sold the go-kart, and I knew this could happen when I bought it for him. Then tried to blame it on her because she wasn't paying attention. She was on her phone when she was walking. But I told him it doesn't matter. He knew these were the rules when he got the go-kart, and it's his responsibility to make sure he doesn't hurt anyone on it. My husband thinks we're being too rough on him and says we shouldn't make him pay for anything or only make him pay for her watch $500. I say no. He knew he'd have to pay for broken property when he got the go-kart, and he chose not to be careful. So he can get a job this summer and pay the $1,500 like he was originally told. My husband thinks I'm being too hard and just trying to get back at him for hurting his sister, but I said if it was anyone else, they'd be responsible for broken property and medical bills. So this is very fair. We can't come to an agreement, so I wanted to know if I was the a-hole.
I gave my little brother a better birthday than my mom ever could have. Throwaway because I'm paranoid about sharing this much on main. This is pretty long, so there's a TLDR at the bottom. I 17F and my brother 13M have dealt with our stepfather. Steve's bullshit for 8 years now. It's always whatever he wants, no questions asked. We always get the short end of the stick while his daughters get everything they ever wanted. Today was my brother Alex's 13th birthday. He told us that he wanted pizza. Steve doesn't like pizza. I got home from work and my mother was setting the table with fish. Alex is allergic to all seafood, but of course, we're having seafood because Steve wants seafood. I asked my mom what Alex would eat. She said he could have peanut butter and jelly. That was it for me. I told Alex to come on and we got in my car which my dad bought for me. And I pay for insurance and gas and I took him to a pizza place. His face lit up when I told him he could get a soda and dessert. It took everything in me not to cry because he deserves better than this. He's 13 years old. He shouldn't be this excited over getting to drink a freaking Coke. After we ate, I took him to a bookstore and let him pick out a couple things. It'll take me a couple paychecks to make up for what I spent tonight, but seeing my brother smile is worth it. Mom called and said she'd report my car as stolen if I didn't come home, but I called my dad. Lives across the country and he sorted something out with her because she stopped calling. She did send an angry text about how she had made Alex a cake and had a present for him. I'd be surprised if the present was anything more than a $10 bill. I waited until it was pretty late to go home, and everyone was asleep. Alex gave me a hug and told me it was the best birthday ever. I went to my room and just let it all go. I'm typing this with tears running down my face still. I've spent the past few years counting down until I graduate and get out of here, but now I can't stand leaving him behind. I guess I'll have to make a decision soon. For everyone asking. My father is disabled and his own brother takes care of him. He's not fit to take care of me and Alex. TLDR. My mom and stepdad didn't give enough of a shit to celebrate my brother's birthday. So I spoiled him rotten. Am I the a-hole for exposing my half-sister's lies about our childhood? With 2 edits. I 24F have a half-sister 27F. We'll call her Taylor. My dad had weekend visitation with Taylor at our house. Until I was 8, and it was the worst. She bullied me really badly anytime I saw her. To the point that I would scream every time my dad even mentioned her coming over. Even if we were kept apart, she would break my things, upset my pets, and tell lies about me. Every week her mom would end up in the kitchen screaming at my parents. Taylor's mom died when she was 11. Her mom didn't have any family able to take her in, and nor did my dad. My dad was the only one who could get custody. When I was told about this, I freaked out, screaming, crying for hours, calling my grandparents and demanding to live with them, all of it. My mom wasn't willing to have Taylor in the house on that basis. And I'm pretty sure she said she would move out if my dad pushed the issue. Taylor ended up being sent to boarding school the next year. And she would go to stay with other members of my dad's family during breaks. When I was 14, my parents divorced. And I would see Taylor every few months at my dad's during school breaks. I'd learned to stand up for myself and she'd grown up. So there was no bullying, but we'd bicker. She was hostile and I never backed down. I didn't see her much after she went to college, and then I went to college far away as well. We now live in the same small city. I moved here in March. It's the kind of place where everyone from each generation knows of each other. I had never encountered Taylor socially, and never mentioned knowing her. But I had met her boyfriend and his friends are part of my larger social group the other night. I was at a party, and Taylor and her BF were there as well. We made eye contact and waved. But she pretty much avoided me all night, during the night. Our mutual friends asked how I know Taylor, and I said we are half-sisters. They all looked super uncomfortable and I pressed for an explanation. Basically, Taylor's been telling everyone that she was homeless as a kid because her stepmother and half-sister hated her and demanded she be shipped off to boarding school, and made her dad ignore her. Were it not for the fact that it was obviously going to come out sooner or later that we are related, I probably wouldn't have bothered to set the record straight. As it was, I'm going to be around these people for a long time. And I didn't feel I should have had to walk around burdened by the weight of her lies. So I told the group the context. She called me yesterday to yell at me. Apparently she's being ostracized from the group. Her relationship is in trouble. Her career opportunities are in jeopardy, etc. I don't see how any of this is my fault. Because she's the one who lied. But according to some people, I should have been a bit more gentle in my retelling of the facts. Because it's her experience, and I basically blackballed her. Edit 1. I didn't have space for this. But just to clarify what I actually said to the friends. I explained that the reason my mom didn't want Taylor to live with us was because of the bullying. And that when they split, my dad still didn't have Taylor live with him. And that I only stayed with him on weekends, Taylor told them. I moved in with my dad so that she couldn't. I also told them it wasn't true. That I told my dad not to finance Taylor's business when she was 20, because I didn't. That was pretty much the gist of it. Edit 2. It was suggested I add this from the comments. I know the answer to these. My mom didn't say to send her to boarding school. What my mom said was, Taylor is not living in this house with my daughter, if that means we split. Then we split. My dad didn't want to be a full-time parent by himself. So he stayed with my mom. And since he didn't have any other family Taylor could live with for various reasons, he sent her to boarding school. My dad never cut contact with Taylor. He visited her at school. It was about an hour away. And sometimes he'd see her at other relatives' places during school breaks. When he moved out, Taylor would occasionally spend the day and maybe one break a year at his place.